Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. With me today is a returning guest, a returning felon, partner in crime, Tre Tipton. So funny story, before Tre gets to introduce himself. We actually graduated from the same university. We both went to the University of Pitt, both in the same program, just about almost 30 years apart, though.
Yeah.
So Tre's just a tad bit younger. I started when I was 8 in graduate school. No, I'm just kidding. But Tre, you've been on the podcast before, but it's very important and why we hit it off so well. We have very similar stories, and we'll talk about that as far as mental health goes, physical health,
right.
Spiritual health, and things like that. And then, guys, we're going to talk to you about something that's very near and dear to Tre, which was his volunteer trip to the Grand Canyon that he took with us. You can see his picture up there on the screen. Got after him for about a year, so we do a Grand Canyon trip. Actually, we're doing 2 this year, but we take people from rim to rim. So that's from one end of the canyon to the other in one day, and it's 25 miles, right, Tre?
That's a lie. It's not 25 miles. It's really like 30, but they tell you it's 25 to get you to actually do it. So he convinced me to do it. Originally, I wasn't going to do it, but I went. I did it.
So Tre, let's jump in here and talk about kind of your journey, where you came from, and we'll dig into mindset, resilience, and things like that. But what are the basics without you giving the whole long story about it, because
right.
We're under some time crunches today.
Just a long story short, man. I'm a kid that's literally from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I lived in pretty much every community that you could possibly think of. The only one I can say I didn't live in is Beaver. But with that said, man, I moved a lot, right? Was a kid that felt like I never fit in anywhere. How many people actually feel that every once in a while? Like you just don't fit in no matter where you are? I get it. It took a lot, you know what I mean? It took a lot of self-improvement, accountability, and on top of that, I was self-motivated, right? So I found myself in a lot of different areas of life where depression and anxiety killed me. There's times where I wanted to give up, I wanted to quit, I wanted to stop going to school because it feels like high school can last forever, but the reality behind it is high school is a small blip in time of your life. And when I realized that, my life started to kind of change. So like I said, I'm from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So I grew up in parts of Hazelwood, I grew up in parts of Penn Hills, and I also grew up in parts of Apollo Ridge and Kiski. So 2 completely different areas, right? One's the inner city, the other one's as rural as you could possibly get. So in that experience, man, I had to learn to adapt. And in doing so, man, I lost a lot of people, right? I lost a lot of friends, some to gang violence and some to just unfortunate situations, and during those time processes, I remember being in seats a lot like these, right? And being one of those kids who would always say, like, nobody understands. And I would say it so often to the point where I would start to believe it, even though it's not true. See, because we all go through something, right, E? Like, we all got something going on. Doesn't matter where you're from or where you're at. We all got something. But it felt like I was on an island with my something because I wasn't speaking up. I wasn't asking for help, and nor was I actually putting myself in position to get help. Now, granted, right, we never really taught on how to do so, at least not our age. I don't know, this is a little bit younger generation, but at least in our day and age, we were never really taught on how to speak up and speak out. And even when we did, right, we weren't always so comfortable to really tell people what's exactly going on. We'd beat around the bush, right, or say that I'm fine or I'm good. And I would often have friends who would ask me hey, are you good? But because I was so deep inside my head and deep within my anxiety, I would just say, yeah, I'm fine. Realistically, I'm going through war in my head. You know what I'm saying? So during those time periods in high school, man, it made me realize that if I wanted to change my life or even being close to it, I'm gonna have to make the change, and it's gonna be on me to do so. Right, that self-accountability was one of those pieces that I can honestly say I really didn't understand until I got to my freshman year of college. But that's just a little bit about me, man. I played football for my whole career, my whole entire life, from when I was 5 years old until I was about 25. After I played for my high school, Apollo Ridge High School, I went to go play at Pitt for a little while. Won an ACC championship, very thankful. Played with a bunch of guys who will someday be NFL legends. And then I went to the Steelers for a year for a rookie minicamp and unfortunately got fired. So like now I'm here, so I can't complain. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, so you guys hear the story of Tre was pretty successful, and that's why our kind of stories collided as well. You know, we had that success early on. I'm not sure. I did not get into college because of my academical prowess.
I'm positive I didn't.
Right. It was more on that athletic scholarship, which is okay.
Right.
Right. But then you had, then you're dealing with the adversity of learning a new system.
Right.
Walking into different classes, having to take certain classes. What was that like going in there and being like a smaller fish in just a lot bigger pond?
Can I be vulnerable with you real quick?
Yeah.
Can I be vulnerable with y'all? I need a confirmation from everybody because this is very near and dear to me, and I don't want to mess this up for myself. Is that okay with everybody? Thank you. So with that said, man, coming in my freshman year was probably the toughest year I ever had in my entire life. Like, by far, not even close. Because again, I'm a freshman. I was the big fish in the small pond, right? Walk anywhere and everywhere, somebody knew my name. And then you get to this big time university and you play in front of 100,000 fans as your first ever game. I've never played in front of more than 5,000 fans up to that point. So 100,000 fans, that's a big increase, you know what I'm saying? So in that position, I also wasn't taking care of my mental health to the level that I needed to. You know what I'm saying? So I'll give you a brief example just to kind of share on the inside of what type of lifestyle I was living. I dropped a pass against Youngstown State in front of about 60 or 80, and my mother got a call from a secret fan saying that I deserved to die because I dropped the football. I'm like, yo, this is what it means to play D1? I don't want to play no more. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I was cool off of it. But in that moment, I realized that, like, I had to speak up and say something because if not, I'm dealing with this internal torture that not too many people can understand. Then on top of that, right, I'm not speaking up about what I'm going through. Then on top of that, right, the only phone calls I'm getting are from my family members about tickets. Not about how I'm doing, about who's coming to the game and who's making it to the game. Then on top of that, right, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. So I was about to be a new father. I was excited, very young. I was about 18, 19 years old. And this part low-key makes me a little bit emotional, but I ended up losing my child that year. And that was difficult. That was extremely difficult because I'm a freshman in college. I'm trying to play to the maximum I can possibly play, right? And then on top of that, now I just lost my first child, and then I also get hurt. So now the one thing that became my peace, right? Like, we all have something that brings us peace. The one thing that brought me peace was playing sports. And then I got hurt. So I can't play my sport. I lost my first child. And on top of that, right, what I didn't explain was the girlfriend I was dating at the time, that was the woman that was supposed to be my wife, right? She tried to harm herself. She tried to kill herself. I'll never forget the call. And again, this is me being vulnerable, so please bear with me. If it makes any of you uncomfortable, please do yourself a favor and reach out to somebody that's around you right now. Because for me, this is what I lived. And I pray that you never live it. But in this moment also, that same young lady that I was dating, she tried to kill herself. And I'll never forget the call. The call that I received was from her aunt. Now, mind you, she wasn't even allowed to date me. She was a white lady from North Carolina. Her family didn't agree with interracial relationships. So they kicked her out of the house. When they did that, she ended up moving in with her biological father that she just met. He took advantage of her more than once with her stepmother. I tried everything to get PFAs, all the above, nothing worked. And I remember just screaming and being upset because now I'm about to lose the woman of my dreams. I already lost my baby. I can't play football. School's not going great. Do you see where my brain's going? To be honest with you, it began to become very tough. Wasn't going to class, didn't want to go to class. And on top of that, my mom had a heart disease that I wished I could have just went away. You know what I mean? And it didn't. It didn't go away. In order the times get easier, I just got tougher, right? Well, that ended up leading me into a very serious situation. And again, this is me being vulnerable, so please pay attention if you can. I was in a lot of fear. An extreme amount of fear. I tried to harm myself. I tried to take my life 4 times in my freshman year of college. You see that football picture up there? Specifically the one that's in the middle from the one with me on the stage. That picture, right, reminds me of my smile because before that year, I tried to end it all several times. First time was in my room. Second time, unfortunately, the young lady that I was with ended up harming herself. Had to run her to the hospital as well. Third time was on a building. Last time was on a bridge, right? And in that last experience, I realized that I didn't want to go through with it because I was tired of losing to myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those situations where when you're so deep in your head and you're so deep into that dark space, it's hard, right? It's hard to see the light even though it's sitting in front of you. Like, I had people around me telling me that they loved me. I just couldn't believe it. And it wasn't the fact that they weren't doing enough, it's just that I wasn't seeing it. And that's hard sometimes, especially when you're going through hard situations. Can y'all agree? It's hard sometimes, right? So I found a way. I told myself I would.
Yeah, and let's talk about that way because, obviously that's what I do. I mean, we help companies now, but I started as just private practice therapist, and saw a lot of these things, went through, my own story and things. And I think it's important when you look at things, Tre, and we've talked about this, and it's important for all you to hear. I think the understanding your story, and when those things go on, it might seem like all is lost, right? But it's the things that we do after that. It's the things like this where we get together.
For sure.
It's the connections that we have. It's the people. Not everybody's going to understand, but there are some people that obviously do. Like, how did you get back? Like, how did you kind of put yourself back together after that?
Well, it was trial and error for sure, and a lot of prayer for sure. It started there for me specifically because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And then I made a promise to myself, a real promise, like a promise that it sat with me for a very long time because I went to 5 different counselors, 5 different therapists. So it took me 5 to find the one that actually fit me. So notice I didn't say I stopped trying after 1. Then on top of that, I made a real promise. The promise was that I would never put myself back in a position where I would lose to me ever again.
What do you mean by that? Because I think that's important for these folks to understand what that means.
So when I say losing to yourself, right, we all sit with our own personal demons. We all got our own personal problems. We got things that we're dealing with that other people just don't understand or don't know, right? In those moments, you got to make a decision. Do you tell somebody or you don't? Do you speak up and ask for help or do you don't? That's up to you. That's self-accountability. The one thing that a lot of people don't talk about in serious situations like this is that it takes a lot out of you for you to do those things. It's hard because now you're letting up a part of you. I had to make a decision to do so and be okay with whatever the result was going to be because I was so tired. So tired. You get to a point where you're like, I can't keep doing this, right? And usually when people say stuff like that, it heads to a more negative direction. But then I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, do you really want to be somebody else's trauma? That was hard for me because I remember the feeling of what I felt, like that space, you know what I'm saying? Like that real space where you feel alone. And then I thought for a second before I had decided to almost follow through with taking my own life, was like, could I do that to my mom? Could I do that to myself? Could I do that to my sister, my brother, my cousin? I don't want them to feel what I'm currently feeling. I can't afford it. It's too expensive, So again, I was tired of losing to me, so I told myself, we're gonna speak up.
Yeah.
We're gonna take time for ourselves. And when we need to talk, we're gonna let people know that we need to talk.
Yeah, that's a big component. One of the things that we do at Center for Victory, obviously we talk about relationships, right? Relationships are oxygen. When you don't have that, all of us, if you look at the neuroscience, it states it time and time again. It doesn't matter what your personality is, what your walk of life is, whatever. We're all hardwired for connection.
For sure.
And, those are the people, for me in high school, I always tell the story, I still with one of my high school coaches, still get together with him twice a year. We go down, we meet at the same place for breakfast.
That's
But
huge.
those connections, like when I got hurt really bad,
Right.
between, high school and college,
Right.
and, lost scholarships and things like that, he was still there, right?
Right.
Still pushing me on. So what was it for you, or who was it for you that helped you get back on track?
It was my rock, my mom. She, God rest her soul, man. She was the epitome of a superhero. Yeah, that's the easiest way to put it. She was an epitome of a superhero. And the reason why I say that is even though I was in my depression, she never let go. Like, I pushed a lot of people away. But my mom, she was that type of rock where, like, didn't matter how hard you push, she still pulled back. And I got a feeling, I got a really strong feeling that a lot of people that are in here right now are those people, And for me, had I not had that, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But she was one of those things that was a consistent thing for me. She was a rock, and even though she couldn't help me, she could motivate me. You know what I mean? She would call me, she'd be like, yo, you got this. You're good. Figure it out. You got this. Now, I'll tell you this, my mom was hardcore. I watched my mom knock out 3 people in one day. So to me, I was like, if she tell me to do something, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So she was genuinely that rock for me, man, and I couldn't thank her enough for that.
And one of the other things that I don't want to forget to talk about, because it's so important, because I've dealt with it I've dealt with it with myself, but I work with a lot of high performers, so top level athletes, musicians, CEOs, things like that.
Right.
Once you come out of football, right, that identity's gone. You have to, you kind of get stuck sometimes, and we've had this conversation back and forth.
For sure.
But I think as we go through high school, like all these folks here, like you get stuck in these little identity loops, and you don't like truly do the deeper soul searching to figure out who you actually are. Like, what was that for you? I know that was very difficult for me, as far as like what kind of, who do I want to be, or who am I? What was that like for you once you left? Especially, I mean, you kind of like blew it off a little bit that, you kind of got fired from the Steelers, but I mean, that was probably a tough day, because like you were working up until that point.
For sure.
For that goal, right?
For sure. It was crazy, because the day I got fired, the guy who took my position walked past me and took my locker. So in that moment, I was like, oh, this is a real grimy business, ain't it? And in that moment, I definitely got to myself and realized that this game is not all that I am. For some of us, it's our occupation, right? Where it's like we're so invested into what we're doing in a job. But that's not all that you are, right? There's more to you than that. So allow there to be more to you than that. So when I realized that personally probably in my 3rd injury. That would have been my junior year of college. So my first injury, I sprained my PCL, my LCL. My second injury almost killed me on the football field. I had a collapsed lung in the football game. They said I had a better chance in a car crash. And then my 3rd injury, I blew out every ligament in my left knee other than the artery. And then after that, I had to make a decision whether or not to still play football, right? But during that time process, right, my identity had been stolen so many times. Like,
Sounds familiar.
so it was just like, man. So then I started to realize like there was other people out there that were just like me, other athletes, other individuals who really needed to speak up and speak out. So I created that organization called Love. And in doing that, right, that organization saved my life. Because I don't know if I'd still be here without that organization, because I was able to talk to other athletes, kind of like a room like this, where we were discussing the hardships of playing sport, right? Like the
So it wasn't
injuries.
just you that was going through all that.
Heck no. There was no way it was just me. You know what I mean? We seen during that time period about 486 student athletes come through our program. And during that time process, you heard all the same stories, right? Whether it's a broken home, an injury, physical harm, all the above, right? But when you're around a bunch of people who have actually been through some of the similar experiences, when you no longer feel alone, that's powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was genuinely powerful. So it allowed me to identify who I really was. I just wasn't an athlete. I was a servant of God, right? I serve people. That's what I love to do. And I don't know about you, but I never felt better in my life than serving somebody else, right? Because you get a chance to really see somebody else smile even when you really can't. and then it shows you on how to smile. So how I found that identity was I seen the power of positivity. Like you can't not smile back at somebody when they smile at you. It's next to impossible. Like I'm trying to tell you, like I have the ugliest smile here, and I could tell you it's hard not to smile when I found somebody I want to smile. See, she had to look away. You see what I'm saying? It's so important because the power of positivity is simple. You never know what someone's going through at all. Like you never know, and you might be the only one positive thing in that person's life. So why not smile? Like the world ain't that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it could be bad. There's some rough times, right? But smiling is simple. Like there's somebody I'm smiling at right now, and I don't know if I'm gonna get a smile from him or not, but I'm gonna try. Nah, he ain't going for it. There it is. I got him. So that's what I'm saying. It's so powerful, right? He was trying his hardest. I ain't gonna lie. That's a tough cookie right there. Yeah. But ultimately, man, like that power right there, like you can easily give that to somebody. Like easily. Like that's easy, right? Like that's something simple, correct? Would you agree? I can't hear you. Would you agree? How do y'all have outside? These are students, right? Like I know they give their teachers headaches. I said, would you agree? I like my guy in the hat. He speaks loud.
So you were talking about serving. I mean, one of the things that really combats a lot of mental health challenges is to get out there and get that focus on somebody else.
Right.
The power of serving, giving back to others, getting it off yourself, and kind of moving forward and
right.
You know, because you never know, right?
Right.
And a lot of times you're right. Like somebody will typically have something that's worse than what you're going through.
100%.
Maybe not every time, but a lot of the times, like
it's close.
It's close. Like you go out there and do things, and it doesn't matter. Like you said, smile. It could be just
so small,
picking up somebody's garbage or what, you know, cleaning a car, whatever it might be.
Right.
It's very powerful, and I think that's like when you get stuck, you know, that mindset of movement through. Okay, we're hardwired to connect. Now I've got to go and serve.
Right.
Right. And that really builds up that community. But so now, what would you say like your identity is now? Like, have you moved on from that? I know the answer to these things.
I'm gonna say, come on, you know the answer to this. Like, it's
But for these guys,
I'd say it depends on what way. The reason why I say that because I'm still competitive, right? Like I'm a great guy. I promise you I'm a great guy outside of sport, but if any of y'all want to compete in anything, whether it be checkers, chess, or anything along the lines, I'm still competing to the highest of high levels. But with that said, man, my identity has completely shifted from being the guy that felt like it always had to be about me, right? Like it had to be about what I'm doing, what's going on for me, why is my pain so bad, right? To me, being in a space where it's about others, right? And like I said, that word serving. Right? I'm gonna say something, and I don't know if you guys will believe me, but it's the truth. Your pain ain't even for you. It's crazy, but it's the truth. Your pain isn't even for you. And when I say that, it's for you to get through, yes. It's for you to grow through, yes. But it's for you to also help somebody else along your journey who's gonna come around who's just like you. And when I realized that, I knew automatically who I was again. Because my identity never was the person that was only focused on himself. That was never me. I just had to become that in order to play the sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, who I really was, who my real identity was, I'm somebody who cares. I love conversation, I love to talk. You know, I'm funny on occasions, not all the time, but on occasions, right? I love comedy, I love hanging out with people. I love seeing people smile. That's why it's one of my favorite things to teach. But that's who my identity is. That's what I identify as. And the number one thing I identify as the Son of God. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, several times, bro, it should have been over. So like that for me, that's my identity. That's just who I am. And I'm also a guy who smiles even when I probably shouldn't.
So speaking of being competitive and challenges, let's go into Tre's favorite topic, which is the Grand Canyon.
I hate this topic.
Like, I always make him talk about it wherever we're at. So picture this, right? It wasn't too hot this past year. It was only 105. The year prior, it was 120. Down in the canyon, but Tre doesn't do as well with heights, especially when it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So we have headlamps on. We begin the journey about 3 a.m. and it's a 25-mile hike. Tre thinks it's 30, so he's got everybody convinced that it's longer than it.
It's 30. I'm telling you right now, it's 30.
So that was one of the pictures that's up on the screen. That's one of the times where we got him to smile. The other time was when I took him into the Colorado River and got everybody replenished and refreshed. It was nice to see him smile. But I wanted him to talk about the canyon because even being an athlete, he had the physical toughness there, right? He was a little worried about the lung, right, that he talked about. Was a little worried about the knee, but then we shared some stories. I've had both of mine done, MCL and ACL. Broke both ankles, so I was like, okay, we can't use that as an excuse. All right, but the mental toughness that it takes, especially, would you say, the last 4 or 5 miles, Tre?
Oh, man.
So did you want to go? You didn't want to go to
At
begin
all.
with. So this took a year to voluntold Tre that he was going to go, right? So I'm in the office that I go into once a week, and Tre, works there, and I'm like, Tre, you're going to go to the canyon. He's like, well, this is news to me. I'm like, well, get ready. You got a year to kind of work up to this. 25-mile trek, so it's probably going to be about 40 degrees when we start, and by the time it rolls around to 9 or 10 in the morning, it's probably going to be in the 90s or well over 100. But it's a dry heat, Tre. So tell us about your experience in the canyon, because that, even for someone like you, that mental toughness. I remember you when you were getting towards the end, and I was with our friend Swing, and you're like, hey, look, I just need to get out of here, but hey, thanks for getting me through this. What was that challenge like for you mentally? Because you could do it physically.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell the real story since we're here, Eric. So it came down to, they told us that we're going to the Grand Canyon. My response was, black people don't do stuff like this. That was my response. I'm being honest, right? I was like, yo, I don't consider myself walking the whole way through the Grand Canyon. This is not me. Come to find out, that's actually true. So the people that we were with, K2 Adventures, they said they never had a black person go on any of these adventures before. So I was like, wow, I really touched history. But in this moment, man, like, as he said, like, it's 30 to 40 degrees in the morning. So I'm already cold, a little bit angry, you know what I mean? We start out the trip, and how we start out the trip, there's an older gentleman coming out as we're going in. He has an attitude automatically. And I have this real, like, complex of whether we can really, like, talk about it or we can box about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could talk it out or we could box it out. Long story short, he started off the trip really bad for us, right? So in my head, I'm like, I already don't want to be here. And I'm here. And now I'm walking into something where I'm terrified of heights. He said kinda scared. No, I need y'all to understand. There's several times I wanted to pass out. Are we all clear? Okay, I'm just glad that we're all clear on that. So in that moment, right, I remember sitting there like, am I really gonna do this? Like, you gotta admit, like, I gotta get you guys to understand. I convinced myself I was not going, and up until literally the week of. Like, I thought he was lying to me. He's like, no, Tre, you're going. I'm like, nah, probably not. He's like, nah, you're going. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Then the day of, he's like, so you getting on the airplane? I mean, I guess so. I mean, we already paid for it. He's like, I gotta go. And when I got there, man, the mental toughness through that was, when we got about 12 miles in, going down this mountain, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, it's like, there's no way I'm making it out of this. And then I seen like 3 to 4 people get life flighted out of there, so I'm like, oh, I wonder how much that cost, right? Because like, me and my boy Swing, we were contemplating some things. We looked into our savings accounts. We were like, listen, us together, we can get this airplane up out of here and be cool, right? We decided not to do that, of course, but I can tell you for sure I definitely thought about it. I can't lie. And I was ready to quit. I can't lie to you. When we got about to the 15-mile mark, right before we went into the Colorado River, I had blisters on my feet. There were squirrels that we were fighting. Squirrels, right? Like crazy, right? Fighting those squirrels, wow. So I'm sitting here like, there's squirrels. I'm hot. My feet hurt. My legs hurt. My mind's gone. And they're like, yeah, so we still got another 12 miles. I just remember just one single tear, just one, not more than one. One just came down, just like this. And I was just like, 12 more? I barely made it through 15. And mind you, I did not train for this at all. So Eric told us you had to do at least 2 15-mile walks before you went on this trip. I'm not even going, so why am I going to do 2 15-mile walks? What are you thinking? I'm cool. Then he's like, nah, you're going. I'm like, oh, for real? I didn't prepare for this. So when we got to that 15-mile mark, man, I realized it was going to take every bit of mental toughness. And I got to a point where I was just like, listen, I'm not going to die here, one. I'm not staying here in the dark because I don't know what's down here, and I don't got time to be with people I don't know in spaces I don't know, right? So I'm out of here. And to his point, there was a point where Eric, he got me the whole way through it, right? And I got to give credit to this guy, because there was definitely a point when we got to like that 4.5-mile mark from leaving. And this is where I'm going to explain to you guys. This is why it's not 24 miles and it's a lie. You see his face smiling right now? You see it. Everybody's seen it, right? So you've seen that I was lied to. Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This 4.5-mile mark was not 4.5 miles. It was 4.5 miles if you go straight up. But they don't tell you it's like 3 miles right, 3 miles left, 3 miles right before you even get to going straight. So in that moment, I had to tell Eric, like, I love you, bro. I really do. But I got to leave you. We all get to that point sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, you got to leave somebody at the end of the day. And I wasn't like, it wasn't out of, it wasn't out of hate. You know what I mean? It was more so out of fear for myself. Because I don't do well in the dark. I just don't, right? So in that,
we couldn't leave swing behind, though.
We couldn't leave swing behind. Almost did. Well, I did. You didn't. That was messed up, wasn't it? That's a little messed up. I can admit it. I can say that out loud to y'all at least, because y'all don't know me. It was messed up. It was messed up. I did. But I'm still happy I did it, and here's why. So in that moment, I needed that time to really experience this on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I needed to see, like, when nobody else is around, how far will you take yourself? Like, who here has real goals? Put your hands up. Like, who has, like, serious goals they're looking to achieve? Now, I can tell, based on how some of you raise your hands, that your goals matter to you, kinda. What am I about to say? When you really want to do something, like, I want to be a great father one day. So if you ask me what my goal is, or who has goals, I'm not just raising my hand here. No, I might even stand up on you. You know what I mean? Because I want you to see it's going to be me. I want you to know I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Does that make sense? So I'm going to ask one more time. Who has goals here? Like, really? See, I see 2 girls who stood up. Okay. I see some people still sitting with goals, so I don't know if it's real goals. Anybody else want to stand up about their goals? No? I see you. Okay. Well, Eric, she got on the chair. She was real about her goals. I like it.
It's good that she got up on the chair, because I couldn't tell she was standing up.
But with that said, I made it a goal upon myself. I was going to make it out of the canyon, right? And in that experience, I learned something. One more time, listen up to me. One second. I learned this from you, Eric, specifically from you. Sometimes, right, in life, you have to put all of your effort into just taking one step. That's it. Because you already beat yourself on a day-to-day basis. You tell yourself 100 times on what you can't do. Imagine when you tell yourself just that one time what you can do. The whole time I'm telling myself through the Grand Canyon, I don't want to be here. I'm not going to make it out of here. I don't want to be here. But then I realized something has to shift if I'm going to make it out of here. So in the last 2 miles, it shifted. Out of all the time being there, the 24 miles that were there, the last 2 miles, it shifted. And I realized in life, no matter what you're doing, sometimes you got to put all your effort into just taking one step towards your goal. Just one. And then you got to do that again, and again, and again for 4 miles. Mind you, at that point in time, I've had 3 knee surgeries. I've had a lung surgery. And to give you a description on this lung surgery was so difficult to the point where the doctor told me that I should have died on the football field. That was a guarantee. Like, it was without question that I should have died on the football field. And he said if I'd have made it to the airplane, there would have been no saving me. So that's playing in my head, Eric. Like, that the whole time I'm like, am I really gonna die here? Like, of all places, am I gonna die in the Grand Canyon? I said, nah, can't go for it. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. I gotta get out of here, and I don't care if I gotta crawl. I'm gonna find a way, Eric. And then they baptized me in the Colorado River. The reason why I say they baptized me is because in that moment I was finished. Like, I was done, right? And we got in the Colorado River with all of our clothes on, walked 10 minutes, and I was completely dry. So upset. So upset. I don't think you understand. I was hot this whole trip. Mind you, I'm one of the only black people in this whole Grand Canyon. So I need you to understand, I'm hotter than he is in my head. In my head, don't know if it's true, but in my head, I'm sweating. But then I realized, I was like, there's really nothing that you can't do. Like, if you really want to do something, like you really want to do it, and you say you want to do it, you could do it. It's possible. Yeah. But you got to commit to you. That's the scary part. Some of y'all will commit to your friends or other people around you, tell your friends advice, but you wouldn't tell yourself the same advice, right? But you got to commit to you and what you want to do and how you want to get out of it.
I think we'll end right there, Tre. So that was good. Thank you. Guys, if you want more information, obviously we'll give it to you more in the Q&A too, but you can find us at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet.